Good evening, and thanks for joining us this evening for our very first ever Explore. We invite you to explore learning, explore opportunities, and explore Iredell-Statesville Schools. I'm Kelly Henson, Director of Gifted Learning, and it's our intention to begin providing a new live or video presentation the first Thursday of every month, focused on a different opportunity available to your child as a student in Iredell-Statesville Schools. We hope to be able to cover a variety of topics and resources and create a virtual library of sorts that has topics that interest you and that you can revisit and get information at any time. We ask that if you think of something this evening that you would like to have more information on, feel free to type that idea into the chat so that we can keep that for future Explore events. Tonight, we offer our first session of Explore, brought to you by the Iredell-Statesville Schools Gifted Learning Department. You will hear from our school differentiation specialist details on how we identify and service gifted students, as well as opportunities available to all students. Throughout the presentation, please use our Q&A question and answer box to type questions, address those questions to the host and the panel. We will do our best to answer these questions by typing responses, as well as at the end of the presentation, going back and addressing as many as possible verbally. Please join Carol Millsaps, Aaron Robertson, Christina Zanotti, and myself, Kelly Henson, as we explore Iredell-Statesville Schools' enrichment and advanced learning opportunities. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to the specialist.
Hello, and thank you again for being here this evening. We're going to go ahead and start our informational presentation. The first slide just gives you our contact information, and we will have that again. I'm Erin Dawes, and I have the Eastern Elementary Schools. You will also hear tonight from Christina and from Carol, and you'll see a video as well from Debbie and Ann, our secondary specialists. So you will hear from us all this evening. Our video is actually going to be focused on 3 different sections, and you'll see this slide throughout our presentation this evening. We're going to start out telling you a little bit about the why we do what we do in our department, our rationale for what we do. And so we're going to look at our state definition of what they say a gifted student is. So they tell us that we know that gifted students perform or show the potential to perform at high levels of accomplishment when we compare those students to other students of their age who've had similar experiences and have been in similar environments. We know that those students have high performance capabilities in intellectual areas, also specific academic fields, and maybe even both. We know that they require differentiated education, and we'll talk more about some of those services later in our presentation. And we also know that they come from a variety of cultural and economic backgrounds. The other piece of the why we do what we do is that our state requires that we have a local AIG plan and that we address these 6 different pieces of that plan. We talk about student identification in our plan. We talk about how we connect and collaborate with schools and within the whole school community. We talk about how we appropriately differentiate instruction for our students, how we make sure that our teachers and our staff members have professional development on working with gifted students. We have to address how we have partnered with those in our community, and we have some pieces that we have to talk about holding ourselves accountable for those things as well. So the next section is about the who is identified and the levels of service that we provide to those students. And this is part of the meat of our presentation here. So I'm going to actually address these things in a little bit of a different order than what you see on your screen, but one of the main things as we're going through this slide that you may want to look at is that chart at the bottom. That's really handy in terms of when I'm talking about point values, so I'll explain that a little bit. I'm actually going to talk about 3rd through 12th grade students first. I think it makes it a little bit easier in the flow if I start there to explain. So all of our 3rd grade students actually take the cognitive abilities test. That would fit in that category at the bottom on that chart of aptitude. And students, that's a baseline score that we have for those students for all of our third graders. Students at other grade levels, if they have enough points toward identification, can retake that at certain times. The achievement piece would be EOGs and EOCs for our students, and then final grades would be their final grades for that semester or that year. So students must obtain 30 points in order to be identified. They certainly could obtain more, but just to kind of walk you through what that might look like, if you look at the aptitude, so we have maybe a student who has scored a 95 on the COGAT in the 95th percentile, that would give them 20 points. If that same student scores in a 94 on their EOGs or EOCs, that would give them 10 additional points. And they could be identified at that point as well. But also, let's say they have a 97 for their final grades, that actually gives them 40 points. So that's one way that students could qualify. And the main way that most of our students qualify is because of those three measures. But it also, if you look at these point ranges, you can see how a student might have done really well on their COGAT. Maybe they have a 96 or above and gotten those 30 points. And then maybe they didn't do as well in their EOGs or EOCs or their final grades, but they could still be qualified. Or maybe when they took the COGAT, their score wasn't fabulous, but maybe they scored in that 89 to 92 percentile rank. And then they did really well in their EOGs or EOCs and final grades. So they could still obtain those 30 points. It gives some flexibility for those students. And we feel like that's a really good thing for them that we have those ranges. So different scores on COGAT, EOGs, EOCs, and final grades have different points toward AIG identification in our district. We talked a minute ago about students scoring 30 points already just with the COGAT. If that's what they obtain, but they are below that 80-point threshold in achievement and below that 90-point threshold in final grades, that student could still be identified. But we would identify them a little bit differently. They would be what we see on this slide as an IG student, an intellectually gifted student, meaning that their ability, their aptitude shows they are definitely gifted. But maybe we need to work with them on how to bring those achievement pieces up so that they're matching their achievement with their ability. So we would focus on that with those students, but still recognize them as gifted learners. For 3rd through 12th grade students as well, let's say we have students who have 25 points of those 30 that they need. You see where we have alternative pathways listed on this slide as well. So students have the opportunity, if they have 25 points and they've got their COGAT, EOGs, EOCs, and final grades added in there, but they're not quite there, we have some alternatives for them to qualify. That doesn't have to be the only method. So we have some learner profiles that one of our other specialists is going to talk a little more about later, but learner profiles are basically gifted characteristic checklists. And the teacher will kind of observe the student and see if we're seeing typically those gifted characteristics. They could obtain points from that. They could potentially retake the COGAT, and then also perhaps in some of the grades, 5th, 7th, and 10th grade, if they have enough points, complete a portfolio of work samples, and that could add additional points to their totals they have already to possibly give them the 30 points they need for identification. So we would look at that for reading and for math. A student could be identified only in reading or only in math or in both, but they would need 30 points in reading, 30 points in math. The other piece to the who of our level 2 students is kindergarten through 2nd grade students, and that process is a little bit different. While in 3rd grade, we test all of our students with the COGAT, and we have EOGs and final grades, and in the grades beyond that, we have those. K2, we do not screen all of our students. If a student is recommended to our gifted processes and support, our GPS team of teachers at the school, that would be on an individual basis, and we would have that teacher give us some data, collect some work samples for those students, and we would talk about that as a team and decide whether that student needed to be tested. If so, that student would take a COGAT appropriate to their age level. And then if they scored high enough, you'll notice here we need 40 points there. So that would mean on our chart at the bottom, they needed a 96 or higher. If they obtained that, we would have a second test for them. We don't have EOGs or EOCs at that grade level. So we would have a psychologist administer a different achievement test, a Woodcock-Johnson. And again, we need those 40 points. We don't have final number grades necessarily in those grade levels. So we would need a 93 or higher in that on that assessment. So if we have those two things, we can identify kindergarten through second grade students. We just do that on an individual basis. So we talked about level 2 students, and that's definitely the majority of students in our district, but we do have other students who receive different services in our district. We'll talk about services here in a minute, but I'm going to skip around a little bit on this one as well and talk to you about level 3 students. So I just explained that students can get a variety of combinations of points on COGAT, EOGs, EOCs, and final grades in order to give them 30 points. If in one subject, reading or math, that student not only gets those points to be identified, but also has made at the very top of all of those categories and has a 99. Let's say in reading, they have a 99 on their COGAT, on their achievement test, and in their final grades, they could be subject advanced. So depending on their grade level, it could be going to the next grade level in their school, if that's an option, or online. That could happen in reading or math, but they have to have those 99s, and we would obviously make sure social emotionally that's the right decision for that student as well. A level 4 student would be a student who's a candidate for grade advancement. They would have to have all of the criteria we've already talked about, but those 99s would have to be in reading and in math on those 3 measures. We would also, again, make sure social emotionally this was the right placement for the child, talk with the principal, have them do an observation, make sure they're ready for that, talk to the parents, consult our AIG director, and those sorts of things. But that is an option for some of our students who meet that criteria. Now, we also honor identification from other districts. Those would be level 1 students. So those are students who have an official identification as a gifted student from another school district, and we have paperwork to support that. We would still consider them an identified gifted student here. However, their services would be a little bit different because they don't quite meet our criteria at this point. A screening list or a watch list of data and students is kept at each school for continuing to monitor. Let's say a student is identified in reading to see if maybe eventually they can be identified in math, or for those level 1 students to see if maybe we continue to monitor their data and they do meet our criteria and they can bump up to a level 2 service. Maybe we have a gifted student who is a level 2 student, but maybe as we continue to monitor their data, they get 99s on, let's say, their EOGs and already had it in the other 2 places. Then that student could then qualify for a higher level of service as well. So we do continue to monitor that and transition that from elementary to middle to high so that that data follows those students and we can continue to monitor them throughout their years here with us.
Good evening. My name is Carol Millsaps, and I work with the Western Cluster of Schools. And I'm going to go over with when we identify students. So most of our data does come at the end of the year. So for this year, at the end of the spring year season, so in 2021 spring, we look at EOG scores, final grades. We place that information on the screening list that Erin mentioned just a few minutes ago. And we also discuss over the summer with principals of those students who were going to be identified in the fall of the following year. And so that those students can be placed in the correct classrooms and receive the correct services and support for years to come. We also have other pathways for identification. So if students do not receive an identification based on data alone, we do have alternative pathways. And the first pathway that we're going to discuss is called the learner profile. And what that is a parent will get a parent will give permission for students who have received 25 to 29 points of the 30 required towards identification. And then the teachers will complete a learner profile during the second 9 weeks on that student. We use 2 research-based profiles, one called the SIGS and one called the Slocum Payne. And then once those are completed, then the results will be provided back to the teachers as to whether or not those students received enough points to gain identification at that time. Students who do not meet the criteria do have other pathways as well. So even if the learner profile doesn't work towards identification, then we do have another profile that I'll mention in just a second. We also have students in our district that participate in ELL services, and we have a specific learner profile for them as well that we do complete during the same time period. Our second pathway is the portfolio pathway. And in students in 5th, 7th, and 10th grades, they are able to complete a portfolio if they have 25 to 29 points out of the 30 needed towards identification. And again, parents will be notified that this process is available for their child, and a permission slip will be needed. So what the portfolio is, it is includes 3 different work samples that the students will complete throughout the year. It's not something that they have to complete like in a day or at one sitting. They do have some time to get these work samples completed, and then they would submit those towards the end of the year. They will be scored, and then if they receive enough points towards identification, then teachers, coordinators, and parents will know at the end of the year that those students did receive enough points for those for the identification from the portfolio. And again, that's only available in 5th, 7th, and 10th grades. The next piece of the presentation is the why, or sorry, the what, I apologize. So the services that we provide for each of the levels that Aaron spoke of earlier. So if you look at the screen, you'll see that level 1 students receive, and those are the transfer students. So those are students that come into our district that have already been identified at another school system. They receive regular education classroom. They are able to be placed in flexible grouping. They do have differentiated assignments and lessons, and they have access to the specialists. Level 2, which is primarily most of our students in our district, those are the students who have obtained identification through our criteria. They receive everything that's in the level 1, as well as cluster classroom and a teacher who is trained for gifted practices and strategies. And they also have direct and indirect support from the specialists. So the specialists will come into their classrooms and provide activities for them. Then you have the level 3, and those students are the subject advanced students. They are dually enrolled. So those are students like, for example, you may have a 5th grade student who has qualified to skip 5th grade math and go to 6th grade math. So they will stay in 5th grade as a whole, but they will take just 6th grade math. Most of the time it is online within their regular classroom. And then level 4 services, those students usually will completely skip the A grade and go to the classroom of the grade above. We also have what is called a differentiated education plan. So once your child is identified, each year at the beginning of the year, you will meet with their cluster teacher, and you will have a discussion with their teacher about what they are doing in the classroom to help provide differentiated activities and lessons for them. You will have, teachers will complete this, and they will have a discussion with parents as to what all it means, what all is included, and then they will, the signatures will be obtained, a discussion will be had, questions can be asked at this time, and that is done every year after they are identified. You're getting ready to watch a video from our secondary specialists, and they're going to give you information as to what AIG looks like in the secondary classrooms. And this is Ann Jordan and Debbie Dearman.
Of his students from the North Carolina School of Science and Math. We did one for middle school and one for high school. These were virtual platforms and allowed for students to interact with the presenters by viewing their presentations and participating in question and answer sessions. We will offer such sessions each quarter, with the next one being available within the next few weeks.
We also want to stress to you, the parent, that if your child is identified as a gifted learner, then your child is identified as a gifted learner through middle and high school. They should be participating in the available programs and enrichment activities that are offered through the AIG department as well as their schools. And they should be completing their differentiated educational plan, or their DEP. Please be aware of our department's webpage, which you can find from the ISS webpage. And if you would also check with your individual school's coordinator so that you can learn about the opportunities that are available to your students. If you would like to get in touch with Debbie or I, if you have any questions, or of course Kelly Henson, who is in charge of the AIG department, you can go to the ISS webpage and click under departments, and you can find the AIG page. We are listed under the differentiated specialists. Have a good evening. Thank you for participating in our program.
Just a couple of changes from the video. They actually do the Learn and Lead sessions once a month now instead of every quarter. And Rob Andrews is coming up on October 12th.
Hi, I'm Christina Zanotti, and I am the third specialist who serves in the southern part of the district. And I'm going to start speaking here about the secondary DEPs that we have for our middle school and high school. Basically, these DEPs serve as a compilation of all of the coursework that the students are doing, their extracurricular activities, their community services. We have the students complete these through Canvas. They're assigned through their advisors, and the students will meet and talk to their advisors to get these the DEPs filled out, and they'll be assigned throughout the year, and the parents will be notified because they'll have a parent part in which they have to complete as well. Then they also have part of the Learn and Lead that could be used as one of their goals for their DEPs. And then Learn and Lead, that is actually a wonderful part of what we offer. Ann and Debbie put them together, and they have people they've reached out to come on Zoom, and they have been doing presentations, and they talk about all kinds of stuff with science and math. They have coping with social emotional needs, test anxiety, giftedness and manifested in the arts, scholarships and career opportunities, governor's school, and we've basically had them made throughout the year. So parents will be getting notified when they're coming up and when they can view these presentations. And I encourage you to watch if you haven't, because they are very, very interesting. And it's also for the students to watch as well. Like they should be encouraged to watch them with you. And then we have some choice options that our school offers. We have DI, the dual language, Spanish English schools. Right now we have Lake Norman Elementary, East Iredell Elementary and East Iredell Middle School that's participating in the dual language programs. We also have honors and advanced placement coursework that we have. It says here that we have the exam fees will be paid through NCDPI, which is part of where our school is based out of with Raleigh. Then we have the International Baccalaureate program, which is IB. We have right now, it's South Iredell High School, Mount Morn, which is changed to the Brawley Middle School. We have Oakwood, which used to be the old Northview Middle School. We have Celeste, right? I'm sorry, Cottle Creek and Cloverleaf. Those are our schools that house the IB programs. Those schools are committed to challenging and dealing with international education for our students. We also have the Crossroads Arts and Science Early College. It's in South Statesville High School, and the students have the opportunity to complete a 5-year program to earn both a high school diploma and their associate's degree for Mitchell Community College. Their high school core subjects are all honors courses, and the students can major in arts, fine arts, science, applied science, and there's a bunch more that you guys can look into. Then we have some choice options. We have the Collaborative College for Technology and Leadership. That provides technology enriched curriculum for students who are earning their high school degree and their associate's degree. We have the Career Academy and Technical School. A lot of people in our community refer to the school as CATS. It has automotive technology, digital film and television broadcasting, fire, science, nursing, and ProStart. And then we have the James Iredell AP Academy at West Iredell High School and Statesville High School. Those students complete some rigorous coursework that requires them to take a minimum of 7 AP classes. Some more options that we have is our Agricultural and Science Early College. It's located at North Iredell. The students can earn their high school diploma and a 2-year associate's degree in agribusiness technology, science, and or the arts. We have virtual options with ISS online learning, North Carolina School of Science and Math virtual courses. We participate with North Carolina public school courses, and also iAcademy that provides the students to have homeschooling partnership with also teachers who support that with the classroom learning. Moving on to enrichment opportunities, throughout the school year, these have been planned, and teachers and coordinators have already started at getting kids into their groups. They have science fair, spelling bee, math expo, battle of the books, chess, robotics, Odyssey of the Mind. All of these things, the students don't have to be AIG for. It's for all of our students to be a part of. We also have done additional competitions through individual schools. They have the NCASA Scholastic Cup, the Governor's School, Summer Ventures, our ISS Summer Enrichment Camps, and the local university sponsored opportunities. And then we have our information in case anybody would like to get in touch with any one of us. It's all on our AIG website as well. You can look at all of our emails and such.
We want to thank you for joining us this evening. While I was monitoring the Q&A box, it seemed like the theme of the questions pertained mostly to K and 2, kindergartners, first graders, and second graders, and can they be identified? And what does it look like at the younger elementary grades? So just in brief and in summary, yes, students in kindergarten, first grade, and second grade can be identified, but the process looks a little different. It's very team driven. And what I mean by that is every school in our district has a gifted processing team that basically is a group of teachers that have been trained, and they work on a regular basis with advanced learners and gifted students, and they come together. And often the parent or the teacher of that child may choose to bring that student forward before the team and have them reviewed for the possibility of testing to see if they could qualify as a gifted learner. We don't have final grades and things like that at K2. So for testing at that level, if the team decides to move forward with testing after they have reviewed observations from the teacher, classroom work samples, the social maturity level of the child, then the team makes that decision as if they want to move forward with testing or not. In the K2, that school's team decision is final. So basically from there, we use our specialist here in our district to provide a Woodcock-Johnson for an achievement score. And we use our specialist that you just met to provide a COGAT for an aptitude score. We use those two scores to determine their points towards identification. So the first thing we look at is to see if they can be identified, and then we look to see their level of service. On that chart that was shared at the very beginning, you can see how the points are broken down for kindergarten through second grade. They have to earn a total of 40 points to be identified. Also, from there, once they're identified, they can be receiving services from a specialist, and they can possibly, the question was, is it possible to be subject advanced or grade advanced as a kinder, first grader, or second grader? It is possible, but it is very difficult and challenging to meet that 99% cut score in both of those. So we have very few kiddos at that grade level that get to subject advanced or grade advanced. Also, just want to caution everyone to know too that if that is met, the team still convenes again and makes sure that it's a good choice for a child that young, looking at their maturity level and all those different pieces. So we are here to answer your questions and try to help out. You're welcome. You saw their emails at the end of the session. You're welcome to email them. You're also welcome to email me. My email is khinson@iss.k12.nc.us. And as we progress through the Explore programs, as I mentioned, they're going to be coming up on the first Thursday. It's our intent to provide them the first Thursday of every month. And right now we're looking at digging a little bit deeper into things like the IB continuum. I get a lot of questions about how that works and what that looks like. Also digging deeper into the Learn and Lead sessions and specifically services that we offer for middle and high school students. I get a lot of questions about that. It will not always just pertain to our department. We hope, and it's our intent, to be able to engage a variety of departments throughout our district. So it doesn't always have to be something that comes from our department. It could be something from other departments as well. If you think of any ideas or anything that you would like to have an Explore session on, again, feel free to email me or one of the specialists, and we'll do our best to make sure that that happens. I'm going to just sit here for a couple more minutes and make sure no one else has any more questions. I do see one in the Q&A, and I see enrichment camps going into a lottery system. They fill up very quickly. Yes, we hear your feedback, and that is actually something that we are working on addressing, is possibly using a different system for registration so that we can keep a better count of who is registering and when, and basically making sure that payment is collected at the time of registration rather than holding seats for students that never covered their expense. And so they essentially don't show. So we are working on that. I hear you, and I think that's a great question, and I appreciate that. All right, guys, thank you for joining us this evening, and we hope everybody has a great night.